Oh, so odd. Welcome to the Monday Night Men's Forum. I'm Matt at FarmHopLife. This is episode number 53, The State of Food. Uh, let's go. Let's see. I forgot what I was doing. We have Christopher of SecureCoop.com and Grant, Homestead of Pain. I think others are going to jump in later, but not sure. For now, it's just three of us. So, Christopher,
Yeah.
personal event, please.
All right. So my stepdad came to visit. There's John.
Hey guys,
Yes.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
go get
Hello.
situated.
And this is fine.
All right.
Your stepdad came to visit. And
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
fine?
Stepdad came to visit. He was sitting here in I'm in the little RV. You can't see because like the fire around me. But we were about to set him up to sleep in this little RV, and the AC conks out. It's like no way. He grew up in Florida, so even though he's been living in Illinois for 20 years, he just kind of put up with it. And it was he didn't like hang out in the middle of the day. He was out at night, where it got cooler, more tolerable, and they got fans and stuff. But that was so frustrating. Because, I actually had just replaced the motor in it, and then the motor's doing fine. And now it's the compressor that died. So I was like, oh, are you kidding me? So it's just an old air conditioner. Then we went shooting, and we went to a local lake, and he set up my bow and arrow. He gave me a bow and arrow a while ago, but I just wanted to work it out and make sure everything's like where it's supposed to be. And then we smoked a brisket. I had never done that before, so it turned out really good. Yeah, we did it real redneck. I have this old smoker I found beside the side of the road, and he's looking at it and he's like, there's too many rust holes in this thing. It's not going to hold the smoke. I'm like, well, crap. I've got this brisket that's just thawed. What are we going to do? We put a bunch of aluminum foil in the holes and just blocked up the holes, and put a hot plate, like an electrical hot plate. Jam that in there, put some wood on top of the hot plate, and it burned the wood, smoked the wood, did the meat just perfect. Like, so good. So it worked out real good.
That's a nice hack.
Method. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep.
That's cool. Grant.
Not a whole lot. Just kind of been working on my future business plan, and it's been going swimmingly. Getting numbers down and quantities down. I don't
growing mums.
Growing mums, poinsettias, pansies, kind of all the above. And that's just first year stuff. That's about half of everything. Not even. It's way too much stuff.
That's awesome.
Then you have your bedding plants, your house plants, your vegetable plants. It's a mess.
Well, congrats on the business plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal, dude.
It is.
I don't remember. We'll just keep going this way. Jeremy.
Personal event? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
A couple of them. Got my watering system for the chickens fixed because, when it got like 7 degrees here over Christmas, PVC doesn't handle cold very well. And so since December, I've been giving the chickens water about every 2 days in one of those 5-gallon watering, which it's doable, but we're headed out of town for vacation and can't really do that. So got that fixed finally. And second is I checked my shirt out.
Hey, look at that. At least somebody represents here. Because I'm
right. Somebody's got to. And my company just went through an acquisition. That's been finalized. So that's interesting.
Like good interesting or like everything's annoying?
It'll be good in the end. Just busy right now.
Sure.
Just busy. But yeah, that's kind of it should work out all right for me.
Good. Good to hear. Thanks for wearing a FarmHopLife shirt.
Hey, thanks for sending me one.
Well, I wouldn't have sent you one if it wasn't a misprint. So
I mean, nobody can tell though. Like, I mean, it's only a little. I mean,
It looks good from back here.
that's right.
Yeah, can't see it, so can't notice.
I'll represent.
Thank you. John, go ahead.
Yeah, just got back from 2 weeks of having been gone. So went to visit my family in Pennsylvania, and then drove down to Missouri, where my son is at right now at Fort Leonard Wood. Spent a week there with him and my grandkids. That was great. And then finally made it home yesterday. So catching up on all my chores. Fortunately, all my systems and were still functioning. And my father-in-law and neighborhood kid took care of things while I was gone, and everything turned out well. So that's good. First time that I've really left the ranch unattended. Probably since we owned it. So my first vacation in 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
would be interested.
a couple of little over, I guess weekend things, but 2 weeks is a long time to be gone. So,
Especially when you've got farm animals and
yeah.
livestock, and I would be interested at some point, maybe not now, but at some point, to learn more about your systems and what you've got set up.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it too is just timing, and so I scheduled in a point where I didn't have susceptible livestock like young ones, particularly chicks, broiler chickens. So it's so hot here in the summertime. I don't run broiler chickens in the summer, and so there's a short window of time where I don't have any chickens on property. So that makes it a lot better. But yeah,
Are you in Texas?
yeah. It's like 100 and it's been over 100 probably for the last,
Ouch!
I don't know, 6-8 weeks. So
Wow,
Gross.
must be South Texas.
no, actually Central Texas, but it's incredibly
Really?
here. Outside of
Wow.
Austin. Yeah, just outside
Wow.
of Austin. It's been a hot summer so far, and dry too. We haven't had any rain in about probably 10 weeks.
Wow,
I'll
we
send you
had
some of
pretty
ours.
much
It won't
rain
stop.
every single week.
Yeah, I could use some.
There was a video that I posted about a month ago, and it had not rained in probably 10 days to 2 weeks. And so I was out there, watering the garden. And my son, he's standing in the sprinkler out in the garden, and just because he's like, "Hey, can I go stand in the sprinkler?" I'm like, "I don't care, go for it." So I'm like, "But I'm going to record it, and you're going to go on TikTok." And it's like within days, like it just started raining, and it wouldn't stop. Like it's been about every couple of days. It's been raining here like crazy. So we will happily send you some.
Yeah, please.
Nice.
It's only that easy.
I know, right?
If only.
I'm sure the
let's see.
government can give you some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. The cloud seeding. I went to Zion for the first time yesterday. That was cool. Very sore. And I sold a couple of shirts. So suck it, Jeremy.
So when you say
Misprint
Zion National Park or what?
Yeah, Zion National
Yeah.
Park. Yep.
Yeah. Why are you sore? Because you climbed a bunch? Or...
We did Angel's Landing, and we're like, that was actually not that hard. And so we just went the other side and ended up doing 7 miles round trip. So
Yeah, that's a lot.
yeah, the shirts that
vertical.
somebody tagged me on Twitter about this shirt. It was grow gardens, not government. And so make some. And so I threw together a design and had a couple sales. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, awesome.
And then I turned it into I'm starting a series. So then the next one I made was grow community, not communism. And then grow skills, not servitude.
So how does one purchase one shirt?
You can go to farmhoplife.com/shop.
Excellent.
Maybe I'll pull it up at the end of the show.
We didn't coordinate that beforehand, so
Nah, that's all right. I could have tried harder. Okay, so the state of food. I got a lot of interest in this one. Obviously, we have almost a full house. So, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to make it. Maybe I can jump in at the last minute." We'll see. We'll see if they show up. Anyways, so Grant picked this one wherever he is. He's over there. Grant, what made you? So I gave you a few options. Why did you like this one?
I mean, that's kind of got me what started in kind of everything I'm doing right now is this was and is the state of our food. Is I picked up a bag of something. I started paying attention to the ingredients, and it kind of spiraled into the mess I'm in right now.
The mess of growing things for yourself.
Growing things for myself, and it's just spiraled into awesome stuff. Like I'm constantly busy. We potted up, I think 12-gallon pots of coleus cuttings. It's getting into nursery production, greenhouse production, not just vegetable production and meat production and all the stuff. It's going full scale self-sufficiency, which is awesome.
I love it. What are you doing to make your potting mix? Oh, I don't want to derail. I'm sorry.
I mean, I make it from scratch. I'll do perlite, pine bark, compost, and peat moss, and I'll just mix them together. It costs about $85 to make 12 yards, and it's good quality stuff.
Oh,
nice. Have you guys seen the videos where like the guy goes down the food aisle? Yeah, and he's like,
love his videos.
Let's see
who owns this aisle. Yeah,
and it's
Black
like
Vanguard and BlackRock.
Yeah.
All Vanguard and BlackRock.
Wow.
But that's only like
funny,
a part of it, right? Is
I
like
started
who owns it.
So I started following that guy when he had like 30,000 followers. I'm like, this dude's gonna go places, and I love his
now at like
content.
300.
Something ridiculous. Yeah. It's but it's engaging content. It shows you like who really owns our food system.
Yeah.
The stuff that I remember we were my son and I were talking. I mean, this has been within the last month, and we were talking about stuff that's in our food and all this stuff and all these ingredients, and I don't remember if it was him or I that said this, but I was talking about lab grown food, like stuff that's made in labs. He goes, so it's like a science experiment. I said, yeah. Our food that we buy at the grocery store is nothing more than a science experiment.
Like the new cloned meat made from cancer cells.
Made from cancer cells. I haven't heard that one yet.
Go on, Grant.
That's what, if you read into the stuff like that's been FDA approved, it's made from cancer cells.
So cancer's going to start feeding people?
I mean, yeah, like meat. I guess that's how they clone it so fast, is somehow using cancer cells, which is lovely, ain't it?
That sounds pretty rad.
Yeah.
That's how do they get that one through? Now I read, and I can't remember the details about it, but I read something not too long ago talking about the fact that it actually not costs more. It's less harmful to animals to actually eat animals than it is to make these lab grown meats. And I can't remember the statistics and how they back that up.
I mean, I don't know about lab grown meats, but like if you're plowing acreage and acreage and acreage for vegetarians and vegans to just eat,
you're killing all of the squirrels and the mice and the snakes and everything else.
Squirrels, bugs, mice, snakes, deers, rabbit, birds, anything that wants a part of your crop is going to get completely slaughtered for the bottom dollar.
That's what it was.
I actually really hate that argument against.
And me too.
Because it's such like low. It's like, why are we stooping to their level of like, hey, what about the mice? What about that? Sounds like crap.
When you're converting like 4 times more unnecessary land just to conventionally row crop farm, I mean, it's a point that needs to be pointed out. Sadly.
Okay, but let's not like dwell on it. Like let's take it a step higher instead of a step lower. That just seems like, I don't know. It just seems like a weak argument against it.
I mean, other than being stupid for not eating meat, what else is there to say?
It's a good argument if you're coming at it from a vegan perspective. That is, how dare you kill animals?
That's what I was going to say.
It's a good argument from that perspective. But as far as a land utilization perspective, I mean, let's face it, most of the animals that we consume do have a grain input, and the cost of production of that grain is considerably cheaper because of factory farming. And could it be better? Absolutely. And are we willing to tolerate, let's say, a 25 to 35% increase in our inputs, cost-wise, for the meat that we get at the grocery store? Some people would argue no. So I don't know. I don't, as far as poo-pooing on grain farmers, I think we're disingenuous if we do that without taking into consideration what that impact would be on meat production.
No, I get what you're saying, but when you look at it specifically, if you're talking about calories for calories, if you want to match calories from doing meat versus growing enough calories in vegetables, it's significantly different.
Yeah, I wouldn't even argue calorie for calorie. I would argue nutrient for nutrient. But yeah, I'm with you.
On a land use basis, the comparison that everybody likes to make is vegetable proteins to animal proteins, calories and proteins. As far as land use and goes, ruminants and etc. Chickens use more land because they need to grow the crops that they consume, and then you get the meat out of it. However, I don't think it's a fair comparison, because I think what I want to look at is grass fed. Where is that at? How does that usage? And what does the land look like when a properly managed, like a Joel Salatin kind of a pasture? What does it look like when they're done with it? And I think it increases and improves.
It improves the land quality.
So it's just the comparisons are not fair when you begin with feedlot beef with all grain compared to a vegan diet. The feedlot beef looks worse, and that's where everybody just sort of hangs out. They're not going on the level of the grass-fed. So
yeah, even if you look at Jeff Lawton or the permaculture folks, Jeff's a vegetarian, and he still argues that you need animals in your production system to raise vegetables. Yeah. But I think we're focusing on the abomination that is meat in the 22nd century here.
Yeah.
And what they are being served up, right? The pablum solvent green solution that we're seeing.
It sounds like, for Christopher's point of like they take like chickens take up more land because they need the food grown to feed them, plus like the stuff that they're already like sitting on. It kind of sounds like we need to start eating people, because we take up tons of land and I don't know. I think we should just start eating people.
Well, I think that's part of the argument for some, right? There's too many people on this earth.
Yeah, that's the argument.
Yeah.
Soylent Green is
the Malthusian position from, I don't know when that came about, in the 30s probably.
Just get in the pod.
Yeah. Right.
Get in the pod and eat your neighbor.
But I've had.
Well, you can argue that they're trying to depopulate.
A real world perspective, right? I'd say I've had probably 20% of my customers asking me, do you vaccinate? Are you using, mRNA vaccines? Or commenting on, fake meat, Franken meat, that type of stuff. So it is making it out to the general population.
And then on top of that, you got your stuff like cloned beef and all that stuff that.
Yeah, or even just it starts with imported. When you look at people post on social media, whatever, they'll see pork raised in China and sold U.S. product of the USA in their grocery stores. It started there, right? Maybe 2 years ago, and now they're all concerned about, is it really meat, right, or is it something else?
Yeah,
and that's why we buy hogs and cows from local farmers.
Yeah, you almost have, and the labeling is so misleading. I was just talking to a girl. She came and picked up here at the ranch a moment ago, and we were discussing organic, right? And so to be labeled organic here in the U.S., if it comes from a foreign country, we don't really have the personnel, the manpower to go verify another country's organic labeling and whether it meets our standards, right?
Yeah,
organic. And so their country can basically say, yes, it's certified organic in Uruguay, right? and in our country, the U.S. will accept that as organic, and so it makes it to all your grocery stores as labeled organic lettuce or what have you. And I just don't think that that's right. I don't think people are aware of that.
Yeah, organic food is a complete total money grab.
And the same
John-
thing now too with, grass-fed, grass-finished. What's the latest one that's been? Regenerative, right? So your big, major food packers have latched on to the regenerative title, which is really ambiguous, granted, but they're
John,
claiming.
all this stuff showing up in the news, like the topics you mentioned, pork from China, mRNA crap, fat, like in cattle, whatever. Has this been like? Have you noticed any like boost in sales or new customers from all this? That's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
It really started with COVID. Our sales probably doubled at least during COVID, and there was a couple of factors, right? Number one, there wasn't a lot in the grocery stores.
Sure.
Right? So the supply chain had broken down. Also, people didn't really want to stand in line at the grocery store. But I think the bigger part is the great awakening that people have had about 2 years into COVID, that maybe the things that we're being told aren't necessarily true.
Our government's 100% trustworthy.
And
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
people
every
started
day.
to look into that a little bit closer. And then, of course, social media kind of.
I was going to say
breeds on-
TikTok has
Yeah.
probably
It's been a
pushed
breeding
that a
ground
lot.
for that and Facebook, and
Yeah.
it's been a huge breeding ground for people waking up.
So, I've had a large number of my customers either thanking me for not doing that, and they were previous customers and already awake, or new customers introducing themselves with that in the front of the conversation, right? Do you do these things? Or, I just learned this. And I have customers sending me articles that, they're in years past, you would have been afraid to send that type of stuff before being labeled a conspiracy theory, right? And now it's, people are just sending these things. Of course, we referenced it in our newsletter a couple of times, so maybe that gives them freedom to share things that, maybe
You open the door. Yeah,
Mm.
sure.
Yeah. But yes, to
Yep.
answer the question, yes, absolutely.
John, do you kind of off topic here, but do you ship? You said you mentioned baby chicks. So
Yeah.
so what do you do on your farm?
We raise broilers, sheep, pigs, beef, of course, and turkeys seasonally, and then we have eggs, laying hens.
Do you
So-
ship?
No, I don't ship.
Okay.
It's a whole nother enterprise. I would like to start shipping, but I just can't keep up with the production locally. And
That's a
there's
great
a whole
problem
lot.
to have.
There's a whole lot of risk associated with it, and
Sure.
there's a whole lot of costs associated with it. I would rather somebody who's interested in me shipping it find somebody local and give their business there.
Sure.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
But if you do want to order stuff from John, you could use discount code mRNA, right?
Speaking of mRNA,
that's good.
what do you guys know about the transfer from the animal to the person? Like, does the stomach acid destroy and break down those proteins, or
I
Is
don't
that
want
a
to even take a chance
concern?
with that.
yeah, I don't want to. I just know that it's possibly could happen.
But
in
how?
life.
All right. So let's take a step back from that though.
Yeah,
Is there labeling to say that this product includes mRNA? So how do you even know?
Who says they're
Yeah.
going to put labeling on anything like that?
So I read an
Probably
article, and it seemed it was well cited that it's actually been in the pork industry since 2018.
Oh, that's
to
good.
make it
That
right
they've
though.
been using mRNA vaccines in
Yeah.
pork. Now, I
Oh,
didn't do the
lovely.
double digging to find out like what is the sources of all of this information, but it was pretty well referenced. So I don't think it's untrue. I wouldn't put it past them. So they were able to mainstream the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, very rapidly. And how did they have that technology so quickly? if they hadn't already been using it.
It's already
in
there,
animal-
right?
Right. And so I think it's not a far leap to say that, yeah, it's likely that they were using it in animals back, whenever, 2018.
Well, if you want to follow the conspiracy side of things, that they already had it locked and loaded, knowing that this virus was going to
Yeah.
be
Yep.
released.
Yeah, I mean, we've had,
I'm not saying that
we've had similar,
I do.
swine, avian flu, all of these illnesses and vaccines were in the wing waiting for the, a swine flu pandemic, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't have all of this lined up. Will you see this in the future? I absolutely. I mean, all technology is going to evolve. I think we'll see a lot more lab grown meats. I think we'll see a lot more, the veggie burgers of years past, right, have morphed into something new. And a muscle tissue can be grown in a petri dish and served up as a steak. I don't think that people will object too much to this.
Well, I mean, and what do y'all think
10
about?
years.
What was that, John?
I said, give it 10 years and this will be
Sure.
normal to have lab grown meat. It is muscle tissue. I mean, you can't argue that it's not, it's not what they're selling now as, whatever the branding they were using for the fake meats, where they're
The
turning
Impossible Burger.
Yeah, the Impossible, right? That's a vegetable product that they're turning into something approximating a meat. But if you actually take a muscle tissue and grow it in a petri dish, it is indeed a steak or what have you. So I think it'll easily go through regulation as being acceptable alternative to, what we're using today as meats. And I think it'll have enough social push behind it with all of the, climate hysteria / religion, that this is better for everybody. And it's the same thing. You can't distinguish it.
I thought there's like this Beyond Meat, Impossible, whatever crap. Like I thought they were having like a tough time selling it, and so or are they just like, John? Are you saying that this is going to happen? They're going to make it happen. For lack of a better term, they're going to cram this stuff down our throats and just
no pun intended.
Yeah, but if you look at the Beyond Meat, right? Impossible Burger, whatever, and you flip it over, it says all of these ingredients, right? And the argument is that this is not meat. This is something other. You can't make that argument if you're growing muscle tissue in a petri dish. It is indeed going to be labeled beef, right? Or something like that. It's going to say
synthetic beef.
But when you get into the science on how they make it, is using cancer cells to help accelerate the growth of said muscle.
Yeah, but that won't be on the labeling. And just think, one generation it's not even going to take a full generation. It'll go into the kids' schools, right?
Yes.
It'll go into hospitals. It'll go into the VA system, right? The Department of Defense, and it'll become normal. And eventually they'll say, well, your kids have been eating this for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
they're still alive.
And they're not going to connect the increase in allergies or any of that stuff.
And then there's the whole economic pressure.
They're on ADHD meds now, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there's the whole economic pressure that people will be under because as they continue to inflate the U.S.
That's going to be part of it.
They keep these products out of the basket of goods, if you will, right? They keep meat out of the basket of goods, or it's a very small sliver, and so people's dollars will have to go further. And you're just going to see a distinct price difference between what I'm selling versus what is in the grocery store. It's going to be harder for me to compete. It's going to be easier for people to make that choice, particularly when they pick it up and it says, ham. Well, even now, if you go to the grocery store and it says ham on it, that's all pressed meat. It's not really a piece of ham, right? It's all of the trimmings that with some gelatin that are smashed together, and they sell it as lunch meat, but they call it ham. So it's not going to be much more challenging for them to grow it in a test tube and call it ham. I'm telling you guys, it's here. It's going to be here, and there's nothing you can do about it.
That's why this year we made the decision. We have a local friend that my family won't eat a whole hog in a year or a whole cow in a year, but a half, yeah. Yeah, so we went in with someone locally to buy half of a hog and a half of a cow, knowing, like, we went down and, like, I put my eyes on the cow, talked with the guy that's raising the cow, and we talked about some of this stuff. And he was like, no, we do this ethically, and, I mean, sure, yeah, they're going to get vaccines and all that stuff. I mean, I think they have to some degree, but
I don't vaccinate any of my animals.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not saying that vaccines don't have a place, and there are some parts of the country that have viruses in the soil. So there's like black leg cattle, and there are legitimate reasons to vaccinate. But I don't think we just indiscriminately vaccinate because that's what the universities and all of the the industry tells people that you need to vaccinate. Yeah. And I'm not going to say that you don't need to vaccinate, but I haven't vaccinated in 6 years and I haven't had a problem. So,
well, and that's a good point, though. I mean, because again, like I know this guy, I've met this guy, and I could say, hey, look, I'll buy next year if you don't vaccinate. Yeah. Like I'm sure that you can't make that determination, that demand at a grocery store or any meat market. But if you find someone locally that
yeah, I'm not against animal vaccines. I'm not against human.
But if it's unnecessary, though, like why
do
it?
Yeah, why? And that's why I don't do it. So vaccines, they have a shelf life and they have to be kept at the right temperature. And so it's challenging for small producers like myself to. It's just an additional cost, right? I mean, the vaccines come in like doses of like it's 150 or 300 doses in a bottle. I don't have that many cattle, right? And so, I would use like 10% of the bottle, and then otherwise it would be thrown away. So that's what this was 6-8 years ago, and I'm like, wow, that's just not financially doesn't make sense. Let me just roll the dice and see if this is even necessary. And so I did, and I haven't had any problems.
Maybe a better question, Jeremy, is to ask your hog guy, like, hey, why are you choosing to vaccinate? Just curious, and like see where the conversation goes.
Well, but like my chickens, I've never vaccinated my chickens.
Yeah, I've never vaccinated any of my goats.
I've lost a few, but
yeah, the thing with chickens though, you can't buy broiler chickens that aren't vaccinated. So I think by
that's
law,
a good point. So they might be. You're right.
They're artificially inseminated, right? Because they have to be. They don't breed naturally. And so they all come out of a few select hatcheries, and I think those hatcheries by law have to administer some vaccine.
Now I've hatched.
I did not know that.
Half of my flock.
They're Cornish cross, or are you raising something else?
No, these are laying hens.
Oh, okay, yeah, laying hens. Yeah, that's
you
another
said
matter.
Broilers specifically.
Yeah, but Cornish cross, that you pretty much have.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Now,
I think they all get.
There's a guy that I follow. There's a guy that I follow on TikTok. What's his? I think it's Rebel Poultry, and he's bred a breed of Cornish cross that continue, like they're meat birds, but he's able to breed them so that they don't. They can continue to be bred over and over and generation after generation. And
so they're not sterile anymore?
Meat birds.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of Freedom Raiders and a couple of those breeds that are close. I haven't tried them myself. I know people who have tried them. I know a guy down the road raises them, commercially, doing something similar that I'm doing. I don't see the economics of it. It doesn't make sense to me. You get a lot less breast meat. My customers want breasts. That's my primary seller. You get a lot more thigh. It takes a lot longer to reach market weight. So,
sure.
I mean, and I don't know if they're actually reproducible as well. I haven't looked that deep into it. Yeah.
But
there are options from a homesteader's perspective. It might be something worth looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. From a homesteader's perspective, it's can I continue this line?
And what I'll throw into there is combine the two. You have your production,
meat birds.
I would intend to, cattle, hog, chicken as well, and you can have your always have your private, stuff that you use if you don't want the Cornish cross, but if you don't particularly like that, you can always have your separate flock that you can keep and maintain. So if anything ever happens, or you have to be self-sufficient, you're cut off from the hatcheries, you can still have a steady supply of a quality meat bird instead of having to dip into your egg layers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you've ever watched The Walking Dead, did you ever see that show?
Yeah, I've seen most of it.
There was a spin-off series called Fear the Walking Dead. I think Fear the
Yeah,
Walking
I've seen
Dead.
some
Yep.
of it.
And it was like how it all came about. Like it's whatever, sensationalized TV. But there was this one episode, and they raided this farm, and this guy had chickens, and the guy's like, "Don't eat the birds, eat the eggs. Don't eat the birds, eat the eggs." And they came in and they ate all the birds. It's like you've completely lost your
Who ate
Yep.
the birds?
some kids. I don't know, whatever. But my point is like you need to be able to replenish your stock if you're looking at it looking at this from a prepper's perspective. You need to be able to replenish.
Well, you wouldn't be raising broilers if that was your objective, right?
Right.
They're too input. They're too
unless you've got a
feed.
breed that is
Gold.
I would go to turkeys. I would go to a heritage breed turkey or goose. Geese eat a lot of grass. Turkeys eat a lot of grass, and they forage for their own stuff really well.
Okay. Noted.
Whereas something like a broiler, even the Freedom Rangers, they're going to require too much grain input, and you're not going to have that available to you.
Okay.
So I've never raised broilers, but like I know that. Are y'all familiar with Justin Rhodes?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's got and it's not his idea. I mean, but he's got the chicken tractor, and he puts his Cornish cross, his what does he call them, sea monsters, in there, and he moves them, and it's the same thing with Joel Salatin and
Yeah, that's what I did.
What's the sea monsters? I haven't
Sea
heard
monsters.
Cornish cross. He calls them
They
sea
grow
monsters.
out and they just
Oh.
become beasts, and they look ugly.
Oh yeah, I've
Their
grown
feathers
them.
can't keep up.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah,
almost
they're
grown them.
ugly.
I haven't done. I don't have the space to grow them, but I've thought about it. I've came close, but he feeds them primarily on grass and bugs. He
doubt
moves the chicken tractor, every day. I'm sure it's supplemented by grain.
I would venture to say that 80 to 90% of their diet is grain.
For them to make weight, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they just won't. I think they'll die if you don't give them enough grain. I mean, these
Sure.
birds are.
That's what you grow, right? Cornish cross.
Yeah, and I raise I raise over 2,000 a year, so I have a little bit of experience.
A little bit.
It's like owning a Ferrari. You have to give it the high octane fuel and the right fuel to air ratio, right? I mean, it's precise. They are genetically selected, not modified, selected though, to grow exceedingly fast. And if they're not fueled properly, they will die.
Well,
Question.
so is it specifically the proteins, like the protein content in the grain? Is that what we're looking after?
Well, it's calories and protein, but yeah, I mean, it's roughly 21% protein their entire life, right? For which is only 8 weeks. You can take them to
12. 60 days. They're 60 to 75 days, right?
Yeah,
that's
I do mine to 52 days. It all depends on how much daylight you have and the temperature, etc. But again, they need the right growing environment to excel. And if you keep them too long, right, the further you get out past 8 weeks, the higher your mortality rate is, because again, you're just rolling the dice, right? Their muscular
they get too big.
They get too big. Their their skeletal structure has a hard time keeping up. Their cardiovascular
stand up
system
anymore.
has a hard time keeping up.
Mhm.
It's crazy how they've produced such an incredibly fast growing meat bird.
Yeah.
And if you want to just say it's selective breeding, I still think it's give it selective breeding or genetic whatever, it's still extremely impressive.
It is.
Not to-
The muscle growth to outpace their feather
Yeah.
growth, sometimes their skin growth. On top of that, their skeletal growth. It's crazy.
yeah,
Well,
they're a freak of
never-
nature.
They don't. Yeah, they don't have many feathers. They have a lot of feathers. And again, it depends on how they're raised too, right? So mine move every day across the pasture. I move them sometimes twice a day, and so they get more activity, right? And so they're
Yeah.
actually using their muscles, and their skeletal structure gets strengthened as a result of having to move. Whereas if they're in a confinement where the food is like right in front of them all of the time,
Yeah.
and there's a couple 100,000 of them in a building,
Yeah, that's kind of specifically what I was speaking to.
they can't really move, and so
Yeah.
they don't really need to move, and so they have a lot harder time there.
So I have two questions for you. Specifically, if you wanted to first year get into producing meat chickens, what would you say a good set number would be? If you say you could scramble up 24 people to sell to, what would be a good number to start with? And
4
two,
dozen.
what do you sell per pound? And do you process them yourself?
Yeah, Matt, do you want to go down this road, or you want to stay on top?
Let's
of it?
go. Keep going. No.
I mean, it's the
Yeah.
state of food. I mean,
It's
that's
all
what
about
I
meat,
feel.
though.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
I let it roll.
So for
Informative. I like it.
homesteading for homesteading purposes, I would say, let's just say you eat a chicken a week, right? That's 50 birds a year,
Yeah.
all right? And so it's reasonable to process 50 birds in one day, right? So you can pluck and eviscerate and part out and package 50 birds with 2 people, and that's it's a long day, right?
Okay, yeah.
Especially your first time. But I would argue it's no more work to raise 100 birds than it is to raise 50 birds. Just like it's no more work to raise 50 birds than it is to raise 25 birds.
Well, I have a
Let's say you eat a whole chicken every other week, that would be 25 birds, but you might as well raise 50. And if you're going to raise 50, you might as well raise 100.
I love that answer.
Yeah, and then you can sell.
Chicken math.
You can sell the rest of them, right? You can sell the other 50, and it'll pay for all of your cost to raise the 50 that you're putting in your freezer.
Yeah. So on top of that, I already have a chicken tractor I built. I converted an old greenhouse, put it on skids, so I can pull it myself. So I could fit about 248 birds in that, given each one of them 1.5 square foot per bird. Is that enough square
About
foot?
248.
Is that
Yeah.
enough or could you go less?
Yeah, no, you can put less in there.
What is your optimal square footage per bird in a chicken tractor?
Well,
for
look, when you put them in there and they're only 3 weeks old, there's a lot of space for just a couple of chickens, right?
Mhm.
And so maybe in your
It's
case,
6 weeks old.
yeah, but whenever they're 7 weeks old, that's why I move them twice a day when they get to be that old, right?
Okay.
And again, it depends on how many square feet per bird, et cetera, and how much the birds are moving around. And so without looking at your design, is a 1.5 foot adequate? Likely. Is it ideal? No. I would say 2 feet would probably be better.
Okay. So that's
And if
just
people think about this for a second, and they're like, "You're only giving the bird 2 feet?" Well, it's not really like that, right? The birds kind of clump together, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
It depends on how cold it is. So they actually, they move around, and it doesn't really seem like they're stuck in a 2 foot box. It's not. The image of 2 square feet per bird doesn't quite represent.
I mean, and
how
if you
the
look
birds
at
are, their
if you look
quality
at
of
2
life.
square feet, 2 square feet is a decent size amount of space, and especially if you move it 2 or 3 times a day. So
Yeah,
you got to keep your
that's
square
the key,
footage.
right? Is to move it so that they're not living in their own feces.
Yeah, and
that's the key.
because the whole point is to build that into regenerative agriculture, to fertilize the pasture, keep it going, break parasite cycles.
Yeah.
So
So
what is your
the other thing to consider is that there's typically a price point at 100 birds when you're buying them, right? And so that's why I say 100 birds is kind of an ideal batch size, because you're getting a price break at 100 or 101
Yeah.
Usually there's a price break. So could you do 200 birds? Absolutely. Now you got to think about how are you going to process those 200 birds? Are you going to do it yourself, or are you going to have somebody else do it?
I'll do it
Because that's
myself.
a lot of birds to butcher.
Yeah.
And you can only lean on your friends for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friends, right?
Grant doesn't have friends, so we don't have to worry about that.
No,
Yeah, and maybe these people have bought into the concept with you, and you're going to take home half of the birds or whatever, and then it becomes, easier to do. But you got to think about the end state, right? And then how are you going to cool down and package and freeze all of those birds? Because now you have 200 times 4 pounds. That's 800 pounds of meat that you got, and you got to freeze it.
Okay. So what do you sell your meat per pound?
I sell whole birds at $7 a pound.
Okay, that seems to be on average what I've found. I've asked a couple different people who do the similar thing. So you would say you're comfortable with two square foot per chicken?
How many pounds are your birds?
And that's a good question too. So I target a 3.5 pound finished carcass.
Okay.
So if you're going to go bigger, and like I was in Missouri and we went to a farmer's market, and that guy, I asked him, I said, how big are your birds? And he said, 6 pounds. And I'm like, wow, my customers don't want a 6 pound bird. He's like, really? But my customers want a 6 to 8 pound bird. I'm like, holy cow, man. I bet, but again, it's all depends on what your market wants. I myself, it's just me and my wife. 6 pound bird is going to be, 2 weeks worth of eating, really. Whereas if you have a family of, 8, maybe you want a 6 pound bird.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's all situational dependent, right? But I would argue that it's still easier to cook 2 3-pounders than it is to cook a 6 pounder.
Speaking of situational dependent, the reason why I allow this is on topic. The reason why I allow these other like side questions or whatever, because like other people listening maybe have these same questions. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Good.
Scott.
So the reason I allow people to get up, we get off the rails. Other people listening, watching, whatever, are going to have these questions. Like maybe they want to grow their own birds. Maybe they're already doing it, and there's a couple of helpful tips in there and everything that you just said. Or somebody's looking to buy, and they're going to start asking the right questions of their farmer, rancher, whatever. Hey, are you doing X, Y, and Z? And so I think that's important. We need to be asking more questions about where our food comes from.
Well, and this has been super informative. I mean, like,
Oh yeah, and I have another question. So most people who would listen to this can't necessarily get into meat, like full scale meat production with 100 to 200 birds. So if you want to look at this from the egg production aspect, do you use something like Golden Comets? And then how do you do your egg production?
I have a are you familiar with what a cotton wagon is?
No. Well, maybe describe it.
So basically, it's a wagon that they. Anyway, I have a trailer that's got 2 axles, and it's got effectively chain link all around it, and
like an 18-wheeler.
Not that big. So a cotton wagon is probably 20 foot long.
I hear cotton wagon, man. I see like
it doesn't matter what it is
with mesh.
The key is to have a mesh bottom, something where the manure will fall through the floor.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Otherwise, you got to get in there and you got to shovel it out, right?
Gross.
And I don't like to do that because that's a lot of noxious fumes and a lot of back-breaking work.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I would recommend something with an open bottom that's a mesh bottom. And we move that around the pasture about every week. And I have the laying boxes on the outside, so I don't have to climb into the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the food and water is outside of the tractor or egg mobile, so that the chickens are forced to come out. That's the key with free-range hens, right? If you provide everything they need inside of there, they're never going to come out because they're a prey animal, right? And so mine have to exit that thing every day, and they have to forage for their own food. They have to go down to the creek to get their own water. And then they'll lay eggs on the outside where the nest boxes are. You can see all of this on our social media, Amber Oaks Ranch on Instagram.
I will definitely go check that out. How many egg layers do you run?
Oh, I have roughly 300.
Okay, awesome.
Wow.
Do you cycle those
Just a
through
few.
every couple years?
So I have a horrible attrition rate with hawks and
Yeah.
whatnot. So no, I do put like I use zip ties, and I each new batch I get, I put it on their ankle with different color. I've got some 4-year-old birds. They're still producing fairly well. You know, if you don't push your birds,
How can you tell?
because of the ankle bands that are on them.
But I mean, like, do they lay that color egg? Like, I don't know how you would.
Well, you would keep up the number of eggs you expect per number of chickens.
Oh, how do I know that they're still laying well? Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So, I started that group that are 4 years old. I started them in a different location, and I can't get them to relocate to my egg mobile. So they're living in my barn, and I've got
Okay.
I've got about 8, maybe 10 birds that are living in my barn that are 4 years old, and so they lay in a separate place. But you're right. Otherwise, I wouldn't know.
Sure. Okay.
I
struggle with that with mine. I mean, like I've got 5 or 6 that I've hatched, and I don't know how many of the OG hens are freeloading or laying eggs still, or I don't know.
So
I have no idea who lays a blue egg in my
problem.
group.
It's a problem. Should I manage that better? Perhaps.
But at the end of the day, I feel like, from my perspective, I've got 12, 11 hens. And if they're not laying, I'm giving them a good life. Like they've laid for several years, and until they die, I mean, they can lay an egg once every week or whatever. I don't care.
You're so nice about it.
So,
yeah, I don't know about once every week, but maybe one every other day I'll tolerate. And so I'm still getting a fair number off of those. In the factory world, they keep the lights on all of the time, right? And they
get the most production.
Yeah, they're basically, they're farming the eggs, and so they'll burn the chicken out by, a chicken only has X number of eggs. I don't know how many eggs they have. And eventually they'll reach menopause and they'll stop. But if you let nature progress, I think 4 years is probably the point of diminishing returns. Actually, probably the point of diminishing returns is about 3 years, really. But yeah, I have some hanging on for 4 years.
And that's where I'm at. I'm at 3 years.
Yeah. So what I would
just to interject there, everybody. So let's give Scott a chance to speak. So Scott, with the invite, I know you missed like 80% of it or whatever. It's fine.
We can go over. We can go in over.
No, we can't. We all have things to do. So when you got the invite, what came to mind for you about state of food?
Well, fall back on the usual stuff. Plant gardens, have livestock, and grow trees. And then that's my solution to everything.
Just do it all yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. And then trade.
Yeah,
with,
so you know where it came from?
Well, you also need to create community, right? So I famously can't grow squash bugs just to send. Even though this year I started growing them, I started looping them up over some cattle panels, and so they're a little bit off the ground, and then those ones are not getting attacked by squash bugs.
Yeah,
but
I did that the first couple years. I'd trellised them. I just basically trellised them on a stick. Didn't get squash bugs this year. I didn't trellis them. I got too busy with school. 5 classes drains me. Every single squash plant I have, squash bug. It's killed every single squash I have. Our cucumbers are producing great. My loofahs are kicking ass, but all of my regular squash got completely eaten.
Yeah, and then make community with folks and then trade, right? So I could trade my greens for squash or whatever else. And then another thing I tried this year was, and I talked about this on the podcast episode, is I started planting more perennials like walking onions and stuff like that, and just packed annuals in between them. So I've got all these perennials. I've got what's it called? Yeah, and then I've got basically greens growing in between them. Now those are burned out, but it's not that bad. I overplant everything, and then the kale's being cover crop for something else. And as long as it doesn't get out of control, then I'm okay. Now squash gets out of control, and then I had to cut it back a little bit.
You brought up
Scott,
perennials.
I'm sorry.
And no, quick thing. One thing when it comes to perennials is you may not think about it, but in your yard, your landscape, your neighbor's landscape, that's one thing I plan to do is landscape people's houses for just looks, for show. Canna lilies, daylilies, and hostas are all edible. And you can just stuff those in your landscape, forget them, and then if you get something like coleus, which is in the amaranth family, those will reseed themselves, and you can eat those too, and they'll just never go away. So it's something that you can add, and it doesn't necessarily look like, oh, hey, that's a bunch of onions. That's something more appeasing to have around your house to incorporate into your food store.
Right, and I've really overplanted thin leaf plantain this year. And so it's almost looking ornamental rather than the regular wide leaf plantain. And then that's all edible. You can throw it in with a smoothie or something.
That's cool.
Yeah, Scott, you touched on something that I want to speak to the people in the audience who are like myself, that just the thought of even having like a few animals is just way too much right now. Is to just meet with other people and find your farmer. Like, I'm just about to take delivery on another cow that I bought from a farmer about an hour from here. He holds the meat for me in his freezer, and the price is a little bit more than store-bought meat, but it's there. I know I'm going to get something good, and it's around the corner. And no matter what happens to the grid or whatever, I can probably get to his place and figure out something. So
yeah, because I've been very disappointed lately with grass-fed meat at the store.
Yeah.
So the quality's terrible. And I used to work for a meat company, famous meat company, that you don't want to know where McDonald's hamburger come from, basically.
Oh boy.
I would love to know.
And there's a reason why when you go to the East Coast, Florida, steaks don't taste very good compared to Kansas.
There's
those are all
the
old
guy
dairy cows.
Well, so the guy that Scott you missed earlier on, I was talking about that we had bought a half a cow, and so I went out and I met the guy that's raising our cow. I saw the cow and all that, and he was telling us stories of going to cattle auctions and he saw a cow come through that had cancer spots on old dairy cow, cancer spots. He goes, "Yeah, that's McDonald's meat right there."
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
Absolutely. So they, especially out in California, the largest McDonald's plant is in Fresno, California, and they take all the old dairy cows that can't produce milk anymore. Some of them are like falling over. It's scandalous, and then they forklifted them onto the line or something.
But it's real meat.
Yeah. So one of the problems we're having right now.
Meat, but
I'll take that cancer beef over.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
I guess there's something to be
Impossible.
said for that over the Impossible Burger.
Over the Impossible.
lab grown.
Or the
Yeah,
lab
it's
grown crap.
impossible.
I mean, this type
or
of cancer
just
or
don't
that
take
type of
either.
cancer. You know?
Yeah, one of the problems we're having right now is that they smudge the rules. So if you put a cow on grass for 2 weeks, you could call it grass fed.
Oh gosh.
So
Which-
it's
so-
just like I got some grass fed beef the other day from the health food store, and it was absolutely horrible. So
I don't like grass fed beef because it's
Why?
not, it's lean. It just has a different texture and a flavor to it. I mean, I like grain fed beef.
Mhm.
It tastes better.
No,
Grass
it does
fed, grain
taste better.
finished.
I like it better.
Yeah,
Taste is
but
subjective. So
You're
there's a
used
lot.
to it.
There's a lot of variables. Whereas, grain finishing, you can get much more consistent product.
all right, let's back up. They're grass fed and then they're grain finished.
oh, okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's you can take out the variability that way. So I would I don't know. Do you eat venison or elk or any other wild game?
Occasionally, not much,
Okay.
but occasionally.
Yeah, so it's going to have a similar flavor profile.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not for everybody.
Yeah, the funny thing around here is all the venison is actually fattened up on corn and soy.
I
They probably eat more GMO than we do, you know.
Gross.
for
Oh, boy.
Father's Day, we were at Costco shopping, and I saw some beautiful looking ribeyes. I mean, these things were probably prime. They were labeled choice, but I think they were prime. They were beautiful, inch and a half thick, looked great steaks. Brought them home because I was out. Brought them home, cooked them up, and I was totally disappointed. No flavor at all. So yeah, just it was totally disappointing. I'd forgotten
You
how
have to bring a
bad
cow with you on your next vacation.
I just forgot how bad meat was at the grocery store. It's no flavor whatsoever. Because that was the first time I probably eaten store-bought beef for sure in about I don't know what, 5 years. Yeah, it was just horrendous.
Yeah, and then we were processing chickens, and the average chicken, even the golden comets, right? They're not Franken chickens like Cornish. So it's amazing how little breast they have. It's just remarkable.
Yeah.
Speaking of the golden comets, for laying birds, would you ever plan to repurpose those hens when they reach their laying limit? Do you plan to put them in your meat production and just kind of harvest them out, or
Who are you asking?
you?
I feed them to my dogs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
my dogs. My dogs. Any bird that gets injured or dies from whatever reason, like I've been losing a couple to heat recently.
Yeah.
And so
Imagine,
my dogs they eat very well.
Do you just throw them the chicken, or do you clean it and process it a little bit?
I just throw them the chicken.
Okay.
I should try that.
All right.
Well, so
I was gonna say let's get this wrapped up. Jeremy, ask your question, and then
We'll have an
no,
after
it
party.
wasn't a question. It was just, I lost. I had a TikTok video that went viral a while back about a chicken that was sick and ended up dying. And Matt asked me what happened to it. I'm like, well, I didn't post this online because people would lose their minds about
yeah,
you know
they're emotionally
like,
invested.
They are like
Crush their
you
soul.
you didn't have a funeral for that chicken. You didn't like bury it 6 feet under. Like, no, I tossed it over the cliff and the cliff and I fed the coyotes. I mean, like circle of life. But it probably would have been better to feed my dog with it.
Yeah, I also compost. Like I've lost
I'll compost meat
a ewe, like a
unless you're
female
black
sheep.
soldier fly.
Yeah, I'll bury it in
that's a
the
good way to
compost
do it.
pile. Yeah.
So what I actually
Yeah.
did this past weekend with that is I had a rabbit die because it chewed its foot off, and so
Dang.
Sorry.
the whole thing. So I
Wow.
laid it out next to the pen because I was gonna do something with it. I forgot to. It rained really bad. It got hot and humid. In a day, it was covered in maggots. The whole thing was just white. I scooped it up and I put it in the pen with all my hatched birds that I hatched out this year. They demolished it. They ate it. So I'm like, that. I guess you could just feed the chicken back to the chickens through bugs.
Maggots, man. They'll. I mean, the maggots will eat the chicken, and the maggots will drop and feed the birds.
Yeah. So
It
so
is.
if you're reselling your meat, there are restrictions against doing that.
See, okay.
But
okay.
otherwise, go for it.
Well, I guess you could do it for like your home flock or your personal flock.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Grant's black label chicken meat.
How do you have livestock guardian dogs, and how does feeding them chicken affect that if you do?
Yeah, so I've gone through several dogs, and the dogs I have now will not eat a live bird, and if that bird is injured, like sometimes when you're moving your chicken tractor, you'll injure a bird, right?
Yeah, I've ran over a couple.
If that bird is injured, I'll take it out of the coop and I'll set it there. The dogs will not eat it until it dies.
Good, very good.
Wow.
So so Grant, how are you moving your IBC Castle chicken tractor Everything you have is
No,
made out
no,
of
that
IBC
doesn't
totes.
that doesn't move. That has become the baby pig pen because I now have 4 babies because I didn't separate them. So
Whoops.
Everything you have is IBC totes. It's amazing.
I only have 54 that I haven't cut, and then 87 that I have cut.
Yeah.
I'm
All
sorry.
right.
Cleaver,
All
get some.
right. That sounds great. We're wrapping.
Wrap it up.
This is going to go on forever. All right, Christopher, plug your stuff.
Yes, sir. SecureCoop.com. I am working on a coop door opener with phone notifications. And after that, we're going to try and expand out through the backyard, all sorts of sensors and things like that. Get on the website. There is a ebook, and you can get on the mailing list. And there is a coupon when you get on the mailing list, as well as a coupon below, Farm Hop Life Rocks. You can combine those together, and the mailing list will inform you when the progress, because right now I'm in beta testing. So I'm still working through the bugs and making sure everything's solid. I've been working in the IT industry, and so I applied a lot of these principles down into the chicken coop level such that I can make a guarantee that if you ever lose your flock and I didn't warn you about some issue that came up and you lost your flock, I'll replace your entire flock, up to 20 birds. So,
Yeah. Nice.
So no John. Sorry, John.
Yeah.
So if your door
Got
sticks,
too
is
many
that
for
what
you.
you mean?
Yeah,
John's
the
got
door
too many.
stinks. Yeah.
Not stinks, sticks.
Sticks. Like it sticks. Yeah, it'll tell
Yeah.
you it sticks, and if it doesn't tell you it's stuck, and a fox gets in there, or a raccoon, then I will replace your bird.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right.
We've had the raccoon war going on. I've killed
Yeah, I
7
bet.
raccoons in 3 weeks. So
You added
Too
to
busy.
that. I still have goats.
No
I still
goats?
have goats. What are you talking about?
You still have goats?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I feel like you're going to run them over at some
Too
point.
busy.
No, I
with
read
toast.
Too
my
busy.
goats out for a couple weeks. Cleaning
Too
out
busy
some
with
babies'
IBC totes, a few goats.
Almost soon
A
to
few
be no
goats.
goats.
A few goats and some baby pigs now.
All right, plug your stuff,
There's-
Grant.
TikTok, Homestead of Pain. I
Oh,
have
moving
like
on.
a bunch of videos ready to post. I just haven't posted them. I'm not
Jeremy.
plugged.
Oh, I'm full screen. Yeah, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I just hit 10,000 on YouTube. Pretty
Super.
cool.
Well, that's
Nice.
amazing. Congratulations. That's very
I mean, I
impressive.
still got a long way to go to catch up with TikTok, but yeah, homesteading, chickens.
YouTube and TikTok followers are not the same.
They're not. No, 245 on TikTok, 30,000 on Instagram, and 10,000 on YouTube. But
That
yeah,
is-
chickens,
that is
chickens,
very
gardening,
good.
homesteading, prepping, just whatever I feel like posting. So yeah,
And
Next.
hats.
take me off full screen. There we go.
Yep. Hey, John here with Ambrose Ranch. Ambrose Ranch on pretty much all of the social media except TikTok. I just started posting
You
on
should
YouTube.
join.
So yeah, if you're interested in things we've been talking about, go check us out. And there is some video up on YouTube with our chicken tractors and some other things. So, yep, follow along.
Awesome. Thank you. And I got to scroll.
That's
Here
not
we go.
John.
There we
Scott.
go. I'm using my touchpad. Shut up.
That's funny. You're in the hotel room, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott Miller at thriveinthefuture.com. Check out the podcast. We have positive solutions to help you thrive, and it's on your fave podcast app and also thriveinthefuture.com.
Keep talking. I'm
Until he can get switched over to
Stretch.
himself.
all right. Can everybody see this?
No.
Garden's not government. Wow.
Oh shoot.
It's good.
This.
Nope,
Okay.
still can't see
I
it.
still don't see anything.
I see it.
You guys are lying.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is one of the shirts. This is the shirt design. I'm at DeRoserFarmHopLife.com. We're a traveling homestead family. I do this men's forum, interviews, tours sometimes when I can. Grow gardens, not government. And
Cool.
Love it.
Yeah.
Governments, not gardens.
all right, get
Shut
out of
up,
here,
Grant.
Tommy. Grant, this one's for you then. Grow community, not communism.
Oh, that was nice. I like it.
And then last one. And grow skills, not servitude.
There you go.
Cool.
Love
The
it.
end. Next week, I don't know
dig
what we're
it.
talking about. We'll figure it out. Thanks, guys, for
Yep.
being here.
Thank you
Thanks
for the opportunity.
Thanks
thanks
for having
everybody
us.
for listening. We'll figure out what we're talking about next week. Right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Later.
Take care.
Ciao.